Hello, and welcome to another episode of Across the Board. Tonight is episode 18. Very special guest joining me tonight, the legendary Gewch. Gewch, how you doing?
I'm good. I think I'm unmuted.
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
you hear
we
me?
can
Okay,
hear you.
I'm
You're
good.
coming through.
All
Awesome,
right,
awesome.
cool. Good. I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. Before we get started in this interview, a lot to learn, a lot to talk about tonight. Just want to give a quick shout out to some recent followers: ASAP G, High Octane Racing, Old Touch, Nifty Boy, Grandpa's Do It Better, and Miyagi Do Karate. We got Nifty Boy, we've got Mo Nose, Trot On, and Mango Ice in chat. Chat is on fire tonight. So tonight's going to be a little different, as you see, and he introduced himself. We have Gewch here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about him, his stable, his NFT experience, and kind of a little bit about his strategy, and hopefully get a little more into the legend that is Gewch. So, Gewch, if you don't mind, and again, no pressure here, but mind telling us a little bit about yourself? What do you like to do? What any hobbies, anything outside of the NFT space?
Uh, man, anymore, I feel like that's all I have time for. It actually works out pretty well. I'm a pretty outdoorsy person, so I like to go um, hiking, kayaking. Well, not like whitewater rafting, but I like to be out on the water. Um, Mountain biking. I do some of that stuff. So summertime is good for me. I like to be outdoors and go do things. Wintertime, I'm not a big winter person. I do snowboard a little bit, but this is actually perfect timing because my stable is like reaching this apex where I need to have more time to dedicate to it, and wintertime is going to be good for that. Um, so yeah, pretty much that's where I'm at with my stable and what I like to do. Other than that, I mean, I work in IT, so I'm at a computer all day, and I actually work from home. So I don't tell my bosses, but I may or may not check on the horses every once in a while. So
Let's hope they're
that's been
not
nice.
listening. So you
Yeah.
said you work in IT. So you've got some tech background behind you. What has that influenced your want or kind of entrance into the crypto NFT space? And when did that start for you? When did you get into this?
Um, So yeah, my introduction was probably like I knew about, I had heard about Bitcoin just like anyone had, and honestly, it never really made a lot of sense to me. I never understood how, this digital currency really made sense. And then once I started understanding the finance world and realized that it's all digital currency and there's not really anything backing any of it that much, is really when my perspective kind of started to change. And really, what there were two major tipping points for me to get into the crypto space, and that was during all the Wall Street bet stuff with GameStop. I did get in, and I got that little thrill of buying some options of AMC. Made I made some very quick money doing that, and then I lost some money very quick doing that. But when they shut all of that down and you couldn't trade, and I saw just how regulated and how much government control there was on all that stuff. It was really disenfranchising for me to stick in the traditional finance world. So I took, I still have a 401k and all that stuff, and I still have traditional investments, but I did want to shift a majority of my, play money, I guess, out of, like an IRA and some of those things, and position it into crypto where you can trade 24/7, and where I don't want to say everyone's on a level playing field, but the fact that if I'm paying attention and I see something start to move, or there's a big announcement, or there's a big catalyst, you can actually do things, unlike in traditional finance where they can just shut it down. And if you're not an authorized, trader, you can't trade between certain hours. So even if you see or hear news, you're going to get front ran on all that. So that's kind of what brought me here. And the other part of it is I did have a coworker who was a big, um, he was big into hex. I won't use the word that they like to call themselves, or maybe I don't know if it's derogatory or not to say
Sure.
it, but yeah, people who are in hex, and he actually retired, and we're estimating his net worth was somewhere at the point where he retired was probably somewhere in like the high, you know, 50, 60 million ish range, and he just
Wow.
peaced out on us. So that was kind of interesting to see. And when I saw that, I was like, man, do I really want to, like, I can retire, everything that I'm doing with my career and everything, I'll be able to retire and that's fine.
Yeah.
But if I want to retire early, that's where crypto came in. And as I was like, there's more opportunities for outsized returns in crypto, I felt like, than there was in traditional finance. So that's kind of what brought me here.
That's really interesting. The pivot, but yet you're still. I like the mindset that you're taking with it. You still, like you said, you have your 401k. You realize the importance of that, but you're kind of using this to have some fun. You see a potential upside, and it's a fit for you. I hear so many horror stories of people that just go out and start chasing, and it almost always ends poorly, and that's just so heartbreaking to hear. So, obviously, everything here tonight is not financial advice in any way. But yeah, that's kind of exciting, reassuring to hear that you're going about it in that way. I feel like that's a very smart, educated way of doing things. So you got into what sounds like coins first. How did you make the jump into NFTs?
Man, I'm trying to remember what it really was that kind of was a tipping point, but I mean, I saw a lot of stuff about bored apes, and then you see pictures of rocks selling for, hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever it was. And I just kind of started going down that. And then I had a buddy who was into Top Shot. He kind of explained some of that. Again, it didn't really make a lot of sense for me, but I was a card collector when I was younger,
Yeah,
and I'm pretty big into sports. So I saw some of that, and it still didn't make a lot of sense, but it was fun to play around with. And I will say that I was probably disillusioned on some of them. I probably had delusions of grandeur on the way some things were going, and you hold bags. But I think that's almost, you're right. I mean, I call it tuition.
yeah,
Your first bear or bull cycle, when you get in and you don't sell the top and you round trip all that money and you have all these theoretical dollars. That's just tuition for me. So
sure.
hopefully I'll get my education, get some real world experience, so to speak, and I'll be ready this time and not see all of those hypothetical dollars evaporate. But yeah, it was very interesting seeing kind of the use case of them. And when you start moving past it's just a picture and start looking at it like it's a membership to a club, so to speak. That was kind of my first revelation, I guess. And then starting to understand the power of actually owning digital assets, and that's really what brought me into photo finish, was that there's a real life use case, I think, for digital ownership. And if you stop looking at it as pictures and start looking at it as, I played World of Warcraft for a long time. I was way too many hours sunk into that game. And you'd see people who are gold farmers, and they would farm gold and they would sell gold. And ironically, I found out that one of the people who started Tether actually owned a he was the CEO of a gold farming company for World of Warcraft.
No way.
um, yeah, I think he was in Mighty Ducks. He was in, yeah, if I recall correctly, he was in Mighty Ducks, played video games, saw the gold farming business in World of Warcraft, started a company that kind of farmed that, and they hired a bunch of people, and that later kind of positioned him into Tether because he saw a use case for digital currency.
That's incredible. I had no idea that that was the case. That's really really cool. Before we
Yeah.
go on a little bit, want to take a quick timeout because we have an absolute legend of my stream. Brett Smith 69 popped in chat and dropped some corgis. Brett Smith may be the greatest mystery in all of crypto because no one knows who they are. They show up on my streams, they show up on some other streams, and all they do is communicate with corgi emojis. So big shout out there, Brett Smith. Thank you. You may be a bot, so I don't know if you can comprehend that, but appreciate the stop in. So you mentioned you were a card collector. I was also a card collector growing up. Do you have a favorite sports card?
Man, sadly, I used to have a whole book of like probably 48 to 70-ish Michael Jordan basketball cards,
Oh
and I have no idea what happened to them. So
no!
I might have to dig through my mom's house. She's kind of a hoarder, and she's got a bunch of stuff in her garage. But yeah, I had a huge collection of Michael Jordan cards. But uh, probably I have some. King Griffey Jr. was my favorite baseball player growing up,
Yeah.
and I do still have some of his cards, in protective cases and in plaques and stuff like that. So
Love
yeah.
that. One of my favorites is I have a Brett Favre rookie card, but they messed up the printing of his name. So they spelled it
Oh,
Farve instead of
nice.
Favre. So yeah, it's cool. It's rare. Like I love that one.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
so you mentioned gamer. You played WoW. Was gaming? Did that influence your decision to get into NFTs? Did that make it easier for you, or was that thought completely separate when you came in?
I think that definitely helped me see the power that NFTs could have with via digital ownership moving into the gaming world. Knowing how much time I spent. So I was very fortunate early on in my WoW career. I got the Compendium of Dragon Slaying, which allowed you to get Kilsarar, which was a sword only had that you had to kill Onyxia to get. Man, I'm really going back in my nerd in my nerd days.
Love it.
But you had to kill Onyxia, and I think I had the second one on our server. And there were very, very
Wow.
few at the time. So it was pretty cool. And thinking about that, as if I look back and if I had an understanding of what digital asset ownership meant at the time, if we were, if you were to rewind and bring the technology we have today back to that time, I mean, that could have been tens of thousands of dollars potentially for someone who's an 18, 19-year-old kid. And how could, what type of power could that bring to their lives?
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. But I mean, I just know people that sold their account, um, and different things like that. And it's like you should own that. I mean, all the time that you spent, I feel like you should own or at least have some access to sell some of that.
I agree. I love that, and that was a big draw for me into NFTs. I was gamer my whole life, and the ability to like, oh, I made this player or I collected these items, but I don't own them. But I spent so much time and effort and
Yeah.
maybe even money to get them. So that was always kind of tough or sad and made moving on for those games extra hard.
Yeah.
Um,
And you also got your first experience with rugs. I remember my friends putting all the stuff into trade to have an Reaper crafted, and then and then the person signs off and they're just out all those materials. So I mean, you got rug back then too. So there's a lot of parallels between early gaming and what we're doing today with NFTs. We're just nerds that grew up and have more money.
I'm loving these analogies, but yeah, I think you're totally spot on. I can absolutely see it. Um, focusing a little bit more now on photo finish. You've got, I think, by my count, 72 horses in your stable currently. It looks like there's a lot of right turf in there, but you've got a good mix of a few other um, preferences. How did you start your stable? Did you buy? When did you get in? And then was it just one or two horses? Was it, hey, I'm going to go all in and get 10? How, talk to us a little bit about your entry.
Yeah, so I actually minted. So I minted stylish studs back in the day. Point two soul, man. There's not been a better mint. Probably going all the way back to NFTs. I mean, with a few exceptions, but that one's feeling pretty good right now for all the rugs and other crap that I've minted. Um, so that really just kind of started it. I liked the project. Really, what kind of flipped a switch for me was when Ian did his roadmap on YouTube, and that really got me invested not only in the project but in the founders. um, and I had a lot of faith in Ian, and when you compared what he was doing and the way he presented himself to a lot of other NFT founders, and I'm not trying to throw shade that way, but when someone
Sure.
gets on screen and presents something like that, you feel a lot more comfortable. At least I did. um, so that kind of kept me invested. As things move forward, we got the Philly airdrop. I work from home, like I said, but on the day of the Philly fair launch mint, I had to work that day and I didn't have a laptop. So I actually went out and I bought a laptop. I bought like a Chromebook and I took it to work, and I told my boss that I had, I I told him that I was that I was FaceTiming that we had like a group call with my grandma or something like that scheduled so that I could get out of work of a meeting um for about an hour or so so
Wow.
that I can mint, which I'd do it again. I don't even care. That was totally worth it for me. And then I just yeah. So that was kind of a fun experience. But moving on from that, I mean, my actual transition, I knew nothing about horse racing. I didn't even really have an interest in horse racing. I was more in it for the NFTs. I would still say by and large, like my interest in horse racing doesn't go too far beyond photo finish. I mean, I would go there and I feel like I would have a little bit more level a higher level of comfort and kind of understanding what's going on. But I'm not a horse racing nerd. Like there's a lot of people who, they were horse racing people and this brought them in.
Sure.
So this is kind of the opposite. And then building my stable was I didn't really have a huge plan. Probably my original plan was RDS was the most underrepresented uh, archetype, and that's really where I started going. I think I started with 5 or 6 RDS horses, and ironically, somehow I became an RTS stable, um, and I don't know exactly how that happened, but it did. And I feel like I'm starting to come up. I actually had a horse earlier today run in one of the qualifiers. He didn't do very well, but I started much lower stables. I didn't want to get into the S or the S minus horses. One, I didn't have enough money in a big enough bag to really get in there and compete. And I also just didn't really feel like I didn't feel like I was going to be able to compete even if I put thousands of dollars in. I probably still wouldn't be able to compete with a lot of those people with the knowledge that they had. So I figured I would go lower, go with like high boost, good quality Gen Zero horses, and see what I can do from there. But I felt a lot more comfortable splashing around in my A and A minus kiddie pool than trying to compete with the big dogs.
I want to go back to your moment where you saw Ian present his roadmap. In that conversation, that I guess that video that you watched, was it more of just the concept of him doing that that was so inspiring to you? Or do you remember like a specific thing or things that he said that then all of a sudden it clicked, if you can remember?
I don't know if there was any one thing. I do think it was more the abstract concept of someone getting out there, putting their face on screen, having a LinkedIn, and also just being a lot more professional feeling, I guess, than the you know I don't want to swear, but the let's
Yeah,
go
yeah,
sort of bros. Yeah.
right. Yeah, no, I know
Um,
what you mean.
it, it's just different. He has a totally different mentality, and he kind of stays in his own lane. He doesn't get caught up in the typical crypto bro stuff. So it was just it. I wouldn't necessarily say it was better or worse, but it was different. And I did kind of appreciate that he wasn't trying to mold himself into a crypto bro to do this. He was taking what he felt was a good concept from a game and bringing it over to a Web3 world where there could be digital asset ownership.
I, I have a lot of similar feelings about just Ian and the way he presents himself, the team presents itself, and um, it's not reassuring. That's not the right word, but just kind of taking comfort in a way that other people recognize that, see that too. There's a collective support behind that, and I think there are a lot of people in the community that recognize the importance of that, his professionalism, and it's really neat. It's refreshing in this space. So, how do you go from your handful of horses to 72 horses, and how quickly did that happen?
Oh man, let's see. I want to say right around the time of the Philly Mint when breeding or not the Philly Mint, sorry, when breeding was closing. Um, I'm trying to remember. I think I had 6 or 8 fillies, maybe 9 fillies. But around the time that it was really winding down and breeding was going to close, there were a lot of people who had fillies listed that they clearly didn't have any intent to breed them, so they were just listing them pretty cheap to move on from them. And I was like, the Gen Zero tickets were selling for about the same price as a filly, so I felt, man, I could buy these fillies breed them and potentially just sell the Gen Zero ticket. I felt like they were very underpriced at the time, so I just started buying fillies and breeding them and then holding on to the assets. I sold a few of the Gen Zero tickets and then just kept the filly. So I think all in all, I have like 27, 28 PFPs.
Wow.
So that was really nice, and that was kind of my goal, was to just build up the PFPs. So buy a filly, keep the PFP, sell the Gen Zero ticket, and then I ended up holding on to some of the Gen Zero tickets as well. So when the game started, I think I had 18 or 19 horses, Gen Zero tickets that I brought into the game, and quite a few of them were fillies. And then since then, it's just been keep buying, keep breeding. Most of them are fillies, so I don't have a lot of time to race. I spend too much time looking at breeding reports, I think. So I'm probably only racing most of my like 2 and 3 year old horses, and then um, maybe I'll probably keep, five or probably 3 to 5 horses year over year that I'll keep racing and won't just retire. It
Sure.
just kind of depends on how good they are.
Do you have any favorite horses?
Um, I actually just sold one of my favorite horses. You get that emotional attachment to some of these
Yep.
horses, but I sold one to Poseidon. He came at me with an offer that an offer I couldn't refuse.
Right. Right.
And so Charlemagne was one of my favorite horses that I had. He was a RDF A+ colt, and he was a pretty good breeder. It was nice to have that kind of steady income, but um, you know, I think I ended up selling him for 180 or 160,000
Wow.
Derby. So a pretty good price for a horse that really didn't fit my stable too much. He's RDF. I think I have a few RDF horses, but I could just as easily breed them RDS, and that's kind of more the direction I want to take my stable anyway. So yeah, that was probably one of my favorites. And then the next one would be um, it's probably Elizabeth. It's just an RDS. It's an A- RDS filly, um, but she has produced some pretty stellar horses so far,
Nice.
including one that I sold way, way too cheap
Oh no.
to Lunatic Genetics or Lunatic Genes. I forget. He's changed his name, but that horse is like, I think it has like an 86% podium rate or something. I mean, that horse is
Wow.
insane. Yeah, yeah.
It's yeah, I guess along with that, like, do you have, you said you were close. Charlemagne had some sort of sentimental value to you. Do you have any regrets in any action that you've taken, not just selling a horse in this game?
um, Regrets. Probably not really. I mean, I guess in hindsight, I regret not buying more PFPs.
Sure.
I did sell a PFP at a time when I think PFPs were selling for about 10 souls. So I sold a PFP and I just took all that money and I shoved it into Crown. And actually that probably put me way ahead. I think I doubled the
Yeah.
total amount of Crown and I got it up front and I could stake it. So
Wonderful.
yeah, I wish I would have bought more. I mean, I think everyone would probably say that. I think if they knew the
Yeah.
prices that we were going to see, everyone would have bought more. But other than that, I don't really have too many. I don't think I really have any regrets. No, nothing crazy.
You mentioned, that's good. That's good to hear. You mentioned earlier that you're racing about 3 to 5 horses per season. Um, the Oh, we got a question. Sorry, in chat. Chat, if you're still here and can see the stream, let me know. We might have to restart this. It looks like we're still live on Twitter. We may have gone off on other platforms, but we'll keep going with it. Um, so you're racing 3 to 5 horses a season. How do you pick what horses you're racing?
Um, so, and I probably need to walk that statement back. I'm racing more. I am racing more than that, but mostly I'm the fillies that I'm racing that I'm just planning on retiring. I'm probably just running them for a year and that first week of breeding season, and then retiring them. Um, the ones that I'm going to keep breeding, the colts pretty much that I'll keep breeding. either they've done well, and the ones that I do decide to hold on to, um, I usually look at the breeding reports and I kind of give myself an expectation of what I think. If this horse comes out to be an A plus, I think it will be a good A plus. Versus
Mhm.
if this horse comes out to be an S minus, I think it will be kind of a subpar S minus. So based off of the breeding reports and then the outcome, that's kind of how I decide whether or not I think I should keep or sell a horse to keep it for racing.
Interesting. What horses are you racing now that you're having a lot of fun with?
Tucano is a good one. I think we're gonna look at Tucano a little bit later in this stream.
Yeah.
Uh, Another one I almost don't know if I can say it is Baloney Pony.
Yeah.
He was the
I
he
saw
was the
that name.
art yeah, he was the RTS horse that I raced in one of the qualifiers today. He's been pretty good as well. And then uh, I don't even know exactly how to say her name. I should know how to say a horse's name that I picked the name for. Prequel or Prequel.
Sure.
She's an RDS filly that I've been racing. That actually, one of the other RDS guys, Eisenhart Stables, he's a pretty big RDS stable, and I think I beat him in a few races. And anytime I would see his horses in there, I always think, "Oh crap, I'm going up against Eisenhart, and he's got a good stable." And I actually beat him a couple times. And after being in two races where I actually edged him out for a victory, he slid into my DMs asking me if I wanted to sell the horse. So so that was pretty fun. But she's been a good racer. She's offspring of Elizabeth, the
Okay.
one of the horses that I mentioned. So
Nice. Yeah,
yeah,
Elizabeth sounds like a big winner for you. We'll since we're talking about horses, we're talking about racing. We'll before we talk about breeding, let's dive into Tucano right now, if you don't mind.
yeah,
We
absolutely.
will take a look. So I've got Tucano up right here. So this is an A minus, or sorry, A plus. 3-year-olds, right turf soft, 2 stars, right 2.5 turf, 2.5 soft, 29 races, and 12 podiums across those. So off to a pretty fun start with this horse. Is this a horse that you bred?
No, this is actually a horse that I bought. I want to say I bought it from Soulmate.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I was really just looking for any RTS horse, colt that I felt could be maybe a decent racer, but had pretty good bloodline so that I could stop going out, going to the breeding market to breed all of my RTS fillies that I had. Um, but then he's been a pretty good racer, so I've just kind of been racing him and racking up crown while he's doing decent and just paying for breeds. I kind of wanted to hedge my bets because I didn't know how cheap breeding would stay, which might be kind of a hotly debated topic. But when you can go out and you can pick whatever horse you want for $50, it's
yeah.
kind of worth it to just go do that rather than retire a horse that's doing pretty decent,
There are a lot of
especially with crown.
options at that 4,000 Derby price range
Yeah,
that have a lot of perceivably good underlying stats with them. So when we
yep,
talked to Kano earlier, you messaged me. You said you wanted me to kind of walk through the horse on my website. So we're gonna plug Takano into horsepower, which I've got up right over here. Just gonna move some screens around. Type in Takano, and we will take a look. And I'll kind of give you my step by step how I walk through this horse. So I'm saying grade A plus RTS. I'm saying above twos, which I like. The first thing that I look for is 3 greens in this top right corner. So I'm seeing,
so
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
just so you know, I can't see your screen right now because it did
Yeah.
the Twitch stream froze for me also.
Let me drop, you can find it on Twitter, and I'll drop this in your DMs, the kick
Okay,
stream.
okay, okay.
Um, there we go. Mo's excited. We got Fib in chat. Fib, what's going on? Thanks for stopping in. Mo loves his horsepower. And trot also on kick. Yes, Twitch was not happy for whatever reason, but we'll figure that out later. All right, so let me know when you've got it up.
Yep, we're good.
Good deal. Okay, so plugged your horse name up top. Haven't touched anything else yet. Just kind of looked at the overlying track preferences. But the first real big thing I look for is in this top right corner for 3 greens. So that's going to tell me the horse can win, will podium, and is profitable. So I'm not seeing a good win, but I'm seeing pretty good, decent podium and some profit here. At first glance, I'm going to then pop down to this distance chart. And again, I'm going to look for 3 greens. So I want to see greens across the board. So I'm looking here at, you see 12 and 11 are jumping out immediately. Maybe 8 a little bit too. Sample size is a little small. I see 5, 4, 3 races, but I'm seeing green, green, and green. One stat that people always ask about on here is the finish percentage or the fleet figure percentage. And just for anyone listening who may not be familiar, what this is the percentage of where your horse finishes within a particular race. So, for example, if you have a 10-horse race, you finish in first place, you're going to have a 10% finish percent. If you finish in 5th, you're going to have a 50%. Why I use that and why I like that is because I feel it is a slightly better indicator of performance than the actual number. For example, if I finish 3rd in a 10-horse race, that's a lot better than finishing 3rd in a 4-horse race in terms of profitability and earning derby. So I see 8, 11, and 12. What I'm going to do before I even scroll down or look at anything else, I want to eliminate everything else on here. So I'm going to click 12. It's going to highlight, and then I'm going to shift click or control click, but shift click, and then I'm going to hit keep only. And a little advanced horsepower technique here. And I'm going to click off of this. So now we're only looking at 8, 11, and 12. And what this is going to do is it's going to filter out everything else. So you went from 29 races down to 12. And all the other metrics and stats here are going to just reflect 8, 11, and 12. So now I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. And I'm looking at now your track preferences. So on the left, I'm seeing the average finish percent. I'm seeing right turning turf. You've run almost exclusively there. And I'm seeing, here lower is better because, again, position 1 or winning a 10-horse race would be a 10% finish position. So I'm seeing soft and sloppy seems to be favorable compared to your results on good and yielding. Now I'm going to look at a speed chart here. This is done at miles per hour. And I'm seeing now that in this box and whisker, this red ball, being your horse's speed, is much faster than horses at 11 and pretty fast at 12. Not necessarily as fast at 8. This chart is the exact same, but instead of speed, we're looking at fleet figures. So again, I'm seeing high fleet figures for your horse at 11 and 12 furlongs. Now, if I wanted to, even more, I could go to this grade selector, and I know that this horse is an A+ grade. I'm going to select just A+. So I'm going to click off of everything, go to just A+. And what that's going to do is that's going to then adjust these charts down at the bottom. And you can see even better performance in terms of fleet figures for 11 and 12. Speed is about the same. So now when I look at these, I'm thinking, what's standing out to me? What noise do I want to eliminate? Well, I want to get rid of good and yielding. So right now, 12 is most profitable, followed by 11, followed by 8. So I'm going to go up to the conditions, and I'm going to go for soft and sloppy. And there we go. And so now we go from 12 races down to 6. And again, this changes even more. So I'm now seeing 11, very, very small sample size across all of these. But you're running in big fields, averaging 11.5 horses. Your average position is 1.5. Your average finish percentage is 13, 150% podiumed every single race. So those 2 races. I see your fleet figure is higher than your average fleet figure for this, a little outlier here at 8. And your horse just seems to be a bit of a closer, going from 42% in the beginning of the race to 21 down to 13. So what's jumps out to me as an area to try. I will never make a guarantee because we're looking back. We have new horses coming into the ecosystem, race selection. I can kind of narrow that down a little bit just looking here at the event types. So I see restricted stakes, allowance, handicap. Um, but then if I look at now on these tracks, the speed and the fleet figures at 11 are very, very high for an A plus horse. So that's how I would go about dialing this horse in, kind of a speed run, if you will, through it. Um, and where I would try next. Again, I'm not going to guarantee you're going to have great success here, but this is the area that I would maybe try and explore 11 furlongs on soft and sloppy to see what happens with this horse. Any questions on that?
No, that's great. I've honestly, so I've tried using the tool, and for some reason maybe I need to like clear my browser or something like that, but I always get an error message, so I haven't been able to use it very much. So kind of what I do, I mean, what I was really hoping to do is I'm sure there are people who aren't using the tools today that could get a lot of benefit out of it. So that's kind of what I was hoping that, we could see here. Really what I did was I just put them in different races. You kind of have those funnels, 5 6 or 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12.
Yeah.
You kind of chuck them into some of those tunnels and see how they do, and then just keep racing if they do well. But um yeah, I mean, that's about as close as I can get close as I can get it. But coming in here and seeing a lot more of that information and comparing it, because the fleet figures and some of the charts that they have in the game are decent, but filtering it out to be your same grade and all that stuff is definitely not to the level that this is. So this is extremely helpful, and I'll definitely try to do this with my other horses as well.
And the one thing that I didn't touch upon in this little kind of walkthrough that we did, but I also really like this season index chart on the right. Can track when your horse has run, and you can kind of see how fleet figures have changed over time. So I find it most effective when you have your horse dialed in, so to say, and then you can track how they're doing season over season. An example that I really like is I'll do two. This was my Gen Zero Hawk, and I absolutely love this horse. I had him dialed in almost, and you know what? We're gonna refresh.
Hawk and I beat me so many times. So I run I run a stable for a sub DAO also as
Oh, looks like we lost Gooch there. We will get him back. Hold on. And while we wait for him to come back. Oh, wait, no, he's already here. That was quick. Perfect. All right, we got you back. So you were saying Hakanai has beaten you. I love this story. Please continue.
yeah, Hawk and I so I run a stable for another project. It's bit like a sub DAO of the Fracture called Night Crew, and we have our own stable, and we have an LTS horse there. And he ran an A minus, and I feel like every time I saw Hawk and I show up, I was just like, this one's probably an L for us. So he
I
wasn't a great horse, but it was still fun every time I saw him in there.
I absolutely love this horse. I had a ton of fun with him. Again, I'm not seeing 3 greens up top, but 69% podium rate, nice. And 11 was his distance. Tried to kind of stay around that, but once I got him in at 11, and you can see at the end here, almost exclusively just nothing but 11s. But this is where, going back to kind of what I was saying earlier, the season index. So I can see that it's the late fleet figure, but essentially your finish percent and how that's changed over time. And this green line is the profitability. And so we can see, okay, well, I've got him dialed in. He's improving. His performance is kind of falling off a little bit. And as his performance falls off a little bit, despite being profitable, maybe with fewer races, but I can see the change in fleet figures over time. So I think it's super helpful when you think you have a horse dialed in to really track and at a high level, really look at aging for a horse. So let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to hear a little bit about your breeding strategy. We talked a little bit earlier about how we thought there were some like really good potential value out there right now. What do you look for in a breed, or does it change depending on the horse? Do you have like an overall kind of strategy, or are you kind of all over the place?
Man, it does kind of go all over the place, to be honest with you. Um, for the season one, I feel like I probably played around a little bit too much, and I shouldn't have. I thought I'll have time. I should have just been a little bit more safe in season one, and I tried to get a left turf firm horse. I tried playing around with some breeds, and I just produced some stinkers that didn't. I don't think they ended up being very good. So since then, I decided, the next few seasons, I just decided, hey, let's try and breed up quickly because I don't know how much longer all of these, S grade horses are going to be floor prices, basically. So season one, I did partially part of that. So I took probably three or four horses, and I just played around with the breeds, and then the others, I said, let's just get them in the barn with an S and try to breed up as quickly as possible. Um, and then after that, that was still kind of the strategy, but I didn't know how long people were going to leave their S tier studs at 50 bucks. So fortunately, that's kind of stuck around. But now I would say the meta's kind of switching for me to trying to get good genes in, because now that it's extended, and even though Ian has said that the inbreeding penalty for like a fourth generation inbreed will be pretty negligible. Um, Now that we are looking back to that fourth generation for a foal with the breed, it is going to be a lot more important to have good genes all the way through. So part of my breeding strategy has been, let's try and mix up the bloods a little bit, because playing in RTS, there's not a ton of one of ones. I think there's pretty much only two one of ones really that you can breed with in RTS. And other than that, there's not hardly any that don't have 101 blood. I think there's Churro and Tres Leches, and Churro, I'd have to probably take out a second mortgage on my house to breed with Churro. And Tres Leches is a good horse, but he just has a little bit lower preferences. So my goal has kind of been to actually take my horses that have high preferences, that are, 7, 8 total stars, and breed them with an RTF horse. Get kind of clean RTF blood into mine and breed it down, and that's only going to bring down the condition preference, which you can't control anyway. At least in a race, I mean, you are not always in full control of that. So that seems to be probably of all the of all the preferences, it seems like that's the one that is the easiest to play around with, I guess. So and not as punishing um, if you have 1 star versus 2 or 2.5 stars or something like that. It doesn't seem quite as bad. So I'm breeding up doing that, and then I'm going to try and bring my horses back into RTS. So I've taken some of my A and A minus RTS horses, bred them with an RTF with half a star or 1 star in firm, so that it brings them down to one, maybe 1.5 stars in soft, and then I still have 2 to 3 S level studs that I can breed them up with. So if I'm getting an A minus or an S minus or an A plus filly out of that, and then I still have 3 S one of ones that I can choose from.
I like that. I like that you're looking for, the highs. It sounds like you looking for the highs on the, the right in the turf, matching those up, keeping those really high, and then just throwing in as little of the firm as possible in there, to
Yeah.
still give you still hopefully a decent chance at preference. But that really opens up so many different like blood and breeding opportunities, and a lot more variability there for you to choose from. So I really like that strategy. I think that's really cool. That's not something, at least in the Twitterverse, that I hear a lot of people talking about. So I think that's really, really valuable, really insightful. You mentioned earlier genes. How do you define good horse genes? What does that mean to you?
I don't know. I've been really into stretchy jeans lately, but I think that's a different topic. uh, so good horse jeans, I would say to me that really means just kind of having them without too many siblings, and just looking for fewer one of ones. And part of it is just the upward mobility of that horse once you've bred up to, if you have an S level, or sorry, an S grade filly, if it has one of ones from three other, PFPs, your ability to breed that up any higher is pretty limited. Whereas
Yeah.
if you only have one of one in that bloodline, then you're going to have a pretty big option. And depending on where, what your archetype is, can also change that quite a bit. If you're running RDF, which I don't know, I think all of the one of ones are in RDF studs. For the most part. So you have a lot of options there. Once you go to RTS, there's pretty much only two, and RDS is pretty limited as well. So there's just a lot fewer options. So you kind of have to be kind of picky about that, and how you breed your horse up, because if you take your horse from an A minus to an S minus, but you can't breed up any higher without inbreeding, then you're going to have to breed down anyway. So it's like, does it make sense to do that? Does it make sense to try and switch archetypes? I don't know.
Yeah. Uh, a lot of questions, a lot of thinking to do. Are you looking then just at the next immediate generation, or are you looking a few generations out?
I do a bit of both. So I've started looking at future generations a lot more, because there are going to be horses that I want to keep and breed up. Um, So some of those horses I'm breeding, and I'm trying to be very careful because I'd like to keep some of those bloodlines clean, specifically for like RDS. Your ability to breed up at RDS basically goes through Doc Holiday, and now through the downgrade, which is also a Doc Holiday, sire. So for me to breed with Doc as an A minus horse, I can't go much higher than that. Now Night Saturns hit the barn. Um, so you do have some options, but yes, I do have to consider that quite a bit. And as I'm breeding up, I have to be aware that if I want to keep a filly, if I want to keep this 4-year-old filly, and I want to keep one of its offsprings and try to eventually get up to an S grade horse and try and compete for a championship in RDS, I'm gonna have to, try and keep those bloodlines pretty clean so that I can breed up and I don't have to breed back down just to, get some get some new blood in there.
Yeah. That's a lot to think about, a lot to digest. I'm
Yeah.
excited to I almost want to circle back with you, in a few months and just kind of see where you're at and see what that's looking like for you. I'd be really curious to see how that's developed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious about it too. So,
So, I mean, this kind of wraps up everything I really wanted to discuss with you tonight. Thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself, your stable, your racing strategy, breeding strategy. I felt this was very comprehensive, very insightful. I really liked, how you talked about breeding and kind of changing that condition preference. Um, Anything you would like to close with? Any questions you have at all?
I don't know if I have too much that I want to close with. Any questions? I'm very curious. I'd like to follow up with you. If we do a follow up, I'll definitely want to have a follow up with you about how I've used your tool, because coming from someone who hasn't been using it and has a modicum of success racing, I'll be very curious how that could take me to the next level with the racing and choosing races. So that would be kind of cool if we did that. But yeah, I definitely want to start using the tools more. Like I said, I haven't because I kind of can't.
Yeah,
But
we'll
I'll
talk
get
about
that
that.
taken care of. Yeah,
Sure.
I'm sure it's on my end. I know plenty of other people use it, so I just probably got to change something on my end.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to having you back. Look forward to discussing Takano in the meantime and how he's doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for joining me tonight, everyone. This is Gooch of Kingsport Racing. Um, where can people find you, Gooch?
Man, pretty much just on Twitter. So I actually just changed my Twitter handle to it's just Gooch underscore now, Gewch. I would, but if I'm going to sit here and talk about anyone, I'd rather talk about you or Mo or Gap Data or any of these other people. I hope that's not a, I hope that's not a
No,
competitor. I hope I'm not
no, not at
advertising,
all. Not at all. We're a
Burger
big
King on a
family.
McDonald's podcast.
You are totally
um,
fine to do that.
but yeah, I mean, I don't produce any like valuable content or anything on mine. I'm just a fanboy who likes to use the tools. So if people are going to spend time going out following, give MJ a follow, give Mo a follow, give Gap Data a follow. Use the tools, follow the people that are actually going to bring some value to your life. All I'm going to do is, probably shit post about Crown and so.
Well, there you go. I threw the your Twitter profile in the Kick chat. Thanks again to Twitch for giving me the boot. But it's in there. Anyone, please drop him a follow. This has been great. Really appreciate you coming on tonight. And chat, thank you for all of your patience switching over from Twitch to Kick, Twitter, and hopefully I'm still up on YouTube. But we will see you next week with a very exciting update. In fact, it might even come tomorrow. I might do a surprise stream with a brand new tool launch. So here's a little alpha. So watch for a tweet coming out sometime tomorrow during the day. I'm super excited to launch this. I've been working on it. Not during normal work hours, I promise. If my employer's listening, don't be upset with me. And yeah, looking forward to launching that soon. Thanks again, Gooch, and chat. We will see you